So here we go, guys. We are here with the Super Hornet again to test it out and do a video very similar to what I did yesterday with the MiG-25, and I always like to do these videos, which is to pretty much just test it out the performance of this vehicle. Okay, so what I mean about that, we're gonna fly it out a little bit, see how it performs, and we're gonna look at the numbers to see if it actually is an improvement or worse than the F-18C. Because guys, you gotta remember, this aircraft did receive a new radar, as you can see, the APG-79 AESA, obviously going to be way better than the radar that the APG-73 that was used on the seas, right? Which is, you know, fine and great. But with that, there was a whole redesign as well, with the aircraft being a little bit more stealthy. Not that it will matter too much, it's not a fully stealthy aircraft, but it's gonna be a little bit harder to detect. And also, guys, because it has extra size on the aircraft, right? And extra weight. So it is heavier, it is bigger. So they had to change some things to actually try to be better on the performance. They introduced a new engine, the 414, right? They introduced a new aerodynamic features that would make this aircraft to be a little bit better. So overall, is it better or is it worse? Because of course, for BVR, for a normal operation with radar and everything, obviously it's gonna be way better. For air to ground, it's gonna be better. It will have more missiles. Everything is better. That's why it has a higher BR. But just like an F-16C compared to an F-16A, it got heavier. And even with the better engine and better performance overall that they try to put into the aircraft, is it really better than the F-18C? So, first of all, guys, you have to think that this aircraft does not like to fly very fast, okay? In these low altitudes, you can see already that the acceleration is very limited, guys. The F-18, in a general sense, is not and never will be an aircraft that it has a lot of max speed. It never will have that, okay? It has a pretty good acceleration, and it gets to its max speed very fast, but as you can see, it produces so much drag that the engines cannot make it go past that. Why is that? Because it's not made to actually go fast. It's made to be kind of slower than other jets, right? Design philosophies, etc. Not gonna get too much into it, but you can see, guys, right there. See, look at these speeds. Yeah, it is around the same as the normal F-18s. How much is better or worse? We're gonna talk a little bit about later compared to the F-18C. But you can clearly see that it doesn't have a lot of max speed. Again, like I said, it does have a pretty good acceleration, especially in the subsonic speeds. But at the end of the day, in the the supersonic speeds, it doesn't like really to do, like, look at this. Very good acceleration. Look at that. Up to Mach 1. After it goes Mach 1, it continues for a little bit, but then it starts to be slower and slower. So yeah, guys, just like a normal F-18, a legacy F-18, don't expect this thing to be too fast, okay? Even if we dive down over here, it is not an aircraft that has a lot of max speed, which is okay, because this aircraft was not made for this. And it's not even that you can see that, see? I mean, the aircraft can hold the speed. Just look at that. It's losing energy, right? It's the engines not producing enough power compared to its drag. That's the major thing, right? So it's something that it might be changed, of course, work in progress, but it is something to be aware of. Let's try to go to a higher altitude to see if we can actually get a little bit more of a better speed, right? As you can see, it climbs very well. It maintains, I mean, it's no Eurofighter or Rafale, but it's there. We can maintain Mach 1 climbing very easily in a almost 28 degrees per second climb over here. We have more than that, probably more than that, right? It's saying like 6,000 feet per minute, but it it probably has way more than that. But yeah, you probably have like 180, 200 depending on the situation, right? Like 100 and something, I would say. But look at this, we're already at 8,000 meters, so it does like to maintain the speed. And that's why, guys, in subsonics, even slightly, like transonic speeds, let's say, the aircraft is one of the best in the game. But once it comes to acceleration after that, it loses out. So let's try to get some speed as well over here. And as you can see, it is taking its time. It's accelerating a little bit better than before in these higher altitudes, but not as fast as you might think it is. I mean, if you really read something about this aircraft, you probably expected this type of performance, right? Like I said, guys, it's not a bad thing. It's just a feature of the way that the design of the aircraft is, right? So Mach 1.2, as you see. I'm gonna try to climb a little bit more, maybe.
Restaurant right outside my house.
So yeah, I'm being a while in here, and as you can see, the acceleration is still there. You can still accelerate, but it's not, you know, particularly fast. So we can go supersonic speeds very well in high altitudes, but it's not an F-15. So expect it. Obviously, guys, I'm just saying something obvious over here, but it's good to actually show this to you because I'm gonna give you a hint. We're gonna go to StatShark in a bit to actually compare to the F-18C. This is worse than the F-18C, okay? But yeah, let me just restart this. And we're gonna try to turn this thing a little bit. So this thing actually, in the lower airspeeds, it is pretty amazing. Look how much turn it can actually do. So it is pretty great. This is without the maneuver mode. With the maneuver mode, I mean, look at this. So this is where it shines. It loses a lot of energy, just like any Cobra technically capable aircraft, right? But yeah, the nose feels very light. The ailerons together with the nose. Everything about this aircraft, although it is heavier, it feels very, very light. And why is that? Because you have larger control surfaces, right? And because of that, you can pull some crazy maneuvers that are only able in flankers and stuff that even have, you know, like, look at this. You can pull some very light maneuvers rolling, which is something that sometimes it is not that easy to do in certain aircraft, you know? And you can do Cobra maneuvers, as you see, which is pretty insane. I'm gonna crash in here probably, but you get the point. So the aircraft does turn very well. Very similar to the F-18C, but it does turn very well. So let's look at the numbers. What are the differences in the numbers themselves? Is this thing actually worse or better than the F-18C? And how does it compare to other vehicles? Well, here we have some graphs. I know, might not be the coolest thing ever, but it gave us a little bit of an idea here, okay, guys? So this is the F-18C against the F-18E. The F-18E is the bluish line over here, and this is the maximum amount of turnage you can do. As you can see, guys, the F-18C can turn better. In the lower speed range, the F-18E can turn better. But overall, the F-18C can turn a little bit better. How much? Well, it's very minor. Like, it's not even 1 degree, like 0.8 degrees, something like that, right? So it's more per second, right? So it's very small, even less than that in certain situations over here. For example, 7, for example, 0.7 degrees. So it's a very minor change, guys. But indeed, in the lower airspeed, the F-18E Super Hornet is better, and the F-18C is better in the high speed, and overall, it can pull a little bit more if you are a little bit faster. Okay? One thing that I have to say is that I will be doing some dogfight videos to try to test this out, but the differences are very minor over here between the two. It's gonna come down to the pilot. So yes, the F-18C loses out in certain situations, wins in certain situations. Overall, it will depend very much on the pilot because these differences are too small. If we actually look at the engine performance, you can clearly see that the F-18E produces more thrust. Overall, in the lower airspeeds over here, and even in the higher lower altitudes, right, and even in the higher altitudes, as you're gonna see, so you can see that the F-18E produces more thrust as well, right? So overall, you will see that obviously produces more thrust, but also, guys, it does produce more drag. So in the higher altitudes or even in the lower altitudes, as you're going to see, it doesn't matter too much. At the end of the day, it produces more drag and it is a heavier aircraft. So although the F-18E produces more power, you know, it is losing so much in drag and weight that if you see, for example, the time to accelerate, like the acceleration over here, you will see that the F-18C is around 10-12% stronger in the initial phases, in the lower airspeeds over here, in the high altitudes, between 1000 and 2000, for example, faster than the F-18E, right? If we go to, this is low altitude, actually. Let me actually do like, 600 to 1500, just for you to see. But you will see basically the same happening over here, that the acceleration, the acceleration of the F-18C is higher by 10, 12, 15%, more or less, more than F-18E. But they converge in the higher airspeeds because of the general idea of the airframe. But you can see that the F-18C, it does accelerate more. Even the time to speed can be seen over here in a very easy manner. See, this is the time to speed to trying to get to 1,500 kilometers per hour. They don't manage that. They manage the same amount of speed, basically, in the lower altitudes. So this is something that you have to have in mind. At lower altitudes, the F-18C and E, they have pretty much the same max speed, but the F-18C gets there a little bit faster. Is it a lot? No. For example, 1,200, the C model does that in 26 seconds, the E in 28, so it's around 2 seconds. So it's a little bit slower. If we put some other aircraft, like, for example, an F-15E, an F-15C Golden over here, Golden Eagle, an Eurofighter, let's put it right here. Let me find the EF-2000. And then the Rafale, you will see something happening that it will not make you too happy. So as you can see, the F-18E is the worst of them all in acceleration. And this is expected, like I said, guys. I mean, the F-15E, the Eurofighter, they do 21, 22 seconds to 1,200, you know, and the F-18E does 28. So this is going to be a little bit problematic, I would say, in certain scenarios, right? You will accelerate less than all the other top tier jets, besides maybe the Su-30. I had to put the Su-30 there. But if you put at least on the turn over here, guys, you will see that, yeah, the Rafale is much better. The Eurofighter is much better. And then the Golden Eagle can turn a little bit better than it. And even the F-18C, as we showed before, but these are minor things. But it's there at least, on the very minimum, right? Of course, it's a lot better than the F-15E. So still, guys, the Rafale is going to be much better than the Super Hornet on turn. The Eurofighter as well. The F-15C technically is better as well. Although in the lower airspeeds, the F-18E will turn more. So below, like, for example, 700 kilometers per hour, or even like 750, 60, below that, the F-18E will turn more than the F-15C, Golden Eagle. But above that, it can actually surpass the maximum amount of the E, right? So overall, guys, you can see that it's on par with other 14.3s. It's just that it will rely a lot on its missiles, because in a 1v1, you might eventually just, you need to use your skill, especially against Eurofighters and Rafales. Everything else, it should be okay. Okay, so we're gonna test that later in a video, but this is the performance you should expect from the F-18E. Like the C model, but maybe a little bit worse. So it's funny that this aircraft is an upgrade, of course, but it's just like the other upgrades that we see normally. An upgrade like the F-16C to A, you know, from the A, stuff like that happens all the time. So the F-18E is an amazing aircraft, but don't expect this thing to be too fast on the regarding of max speed, although it does have a pretty good acceleration. It is still losing on the acceleration against all the other F-14.3s. I didn't, you know, put the Su-30, but the Su-30 is much worse than most of them, so it doesn't matter too much. And even then, I mean, the Su-30 loses out on acceleration sometimes by quite a lot than the other ones, and it's still very much competitive. So it's not a death sentence. It's just that something that you have to understand. These aircraft and most aircraft in the future will rely on the radar and missiles. The performance is somewhat around the same on the turning capability and subsonic speeds, but in the high speeds and acceleration to get to higher speeds, it loses out to most 14.3s. Okay, guys? So this is what you should expect from the 14.3 Super Hornet. This is the performance put into the test. And yeah, guys, I'll see you guys on the next one. Make sure to subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment. We'll test it out, the J10C as well. And maybe the new Rafale as well. So keep an eye out. I'll see you guys on the next one. Join the Discord down in the description. And bye. See ya.